Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. Today we are going to be looking at all of this cool research about how AI can be used to combat climate change. Sometimes feels like such a huge, overwhelming topic. Where to even start? But thankfully, a lot of really smart people are thinking about it, and AI is coming up as like this really important tool in the fight.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got some really cool stuff to talk about today from researchers like Andrew Bing. And there's a lot of exciting work being done at institutions like IBM and UC Davis. I think one of the really promising things is that we're seeing AI used in all sorts of different areas to try to cut down on carbon emissions and help us live more sustainably.
Yeah, so let's dive right in. I think one area where AI has like a ton of potential is making our cities and transportation systems smarter. Like imagine if AI algorithms were analyzing traffic patterns in real time and then they could like tweak traffic light timing or even suggest different routes to drivers, and it would just make everything run smoother and cut down on those emissions from all those cars just sitting there idling.
Yeah, it's not just about like making your commute a little bit easier though, although I'm sure everyone would appreciate that. It's really about that bigger picture of how we can use AI to transition to a world where transportation is more electric and autonomous. If we can do that, we could really see a significant drop in carbon emissions, especially as we start using more renewable energy sources to power those electric vehicles.
And it's not just about car either. Jordan Harrod, whose work we're looking at today, brought up this really interesting point about ride-sharing apps and how in some cases they might actually be making the problem worse because they're leading to more congestion and emissions. It seems like AI could help us avoid those unintended consequences by designing transportation systems that are just more efficient and sustainable right from the start.
Totally, AI could help us kind of see those ripple effects before they happen and design systems that are really optimized for sustainability. So, for example, AI algorithms could be analyzing all this data that we have on public transportation, ride sharing, pedestrian traffic, all that stuff to create this really integrated transportation network that is super efficient.
Speaking of optimization, let's talk about agriculture because AI is also revolutionizing that whole sector too. It's kind of amazing how it's being used to help farmers adapt to a changing climate and make food production more sustainable.
Yeah, this area is super exciting to me because it has the potential to tackle both climate change and food security at the same time. Imagine having sensors and drones out in the fields collecting all this data on things like soil moisture and crop health, and then AI can step in and analyze all of that data and help farmers do things like optimize irrigation, predict how much they'll be able to yield from their crops, and even detect diseases super early on.
It's almost like giving farmers this like superpower, right? They're able to make much better decisions, use resources more efficiently, and end up producing more food, but with less impact on the environment. And I really like how researchers like Jordan Harrod are optimistic about AI's potential to make agriculture more resilient to all these changes that are happening with the climate.
Yeah, exactly, because as climate patterns keep shifting, some of those traditional farming practices might not work as well. AI can help farmers adapt to those changes, whether it's by developing crops that can survive droughts, or maybe by optimizing planting schedules based on what the weather's going to be like.
It's like having a crystal ball almost helping us see what's coming down the road and make better choices today. And speaking of predictions, let's shift gear again and talk about climate modeling. AI is really changing the game there. It can handle those huge data sets, track all those crazy interactions in our climate system, and just create models that are so much more accurate than what we've had before.
This is where AI's ability to handle and make sense of huge amounts of data is really important. We're not just talking about predicting temperature here, but understanding all those factors that play a role in our climate, from ocean currents to deforestation. AI can help us predict those extreme weather events with more accuracy, which gives us more time to prepare and could actually save lives.
Yeah, it's like having this much clearer picture of what's coming, which helps us make better decisions about everything from infrastructure planning to disaster preparedness. And as Jordan Harrod pointed out, these AR models are also super helpful in debunking those climate change denial arguments because they can show that clear data-driven link between what humans are doing and the changes that are happening.
Yeah, they provide that evidence that can really help shift public opinion and encourage people to take action. But we also need to be careful about the ethics of using these models. We have to make sure that they're developed and used responsibly and that they don't create bias or make existing inequalities worse.
Absolutely. We want to make sure AI is used to do good, not just make predictions. But even with the most advanced models, predicting the future perfectly is still impossible, right?
You got it. AI can provide us with some really valuable insights, but it can't replace human judgment. We still have to make tough choices about how to adapt to the changes and try to prevent more damage from happening.
Okay, so far we've covered how AI can create smarter cities, sustainable farms, more accurate climate predictions. But wait, there's more. Let's move on to something I find super interesting, AI's role in materials science and carbon capture. It feels like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It does kind of feel that way. It's definitely an area that's ripe for breakthroughs, and AI is already playing a big role in developing some cool solutions for dealing with climate change.
Now, I was listening to Stacy Gifford from IBM talk about this, and her excitement was infectious. She was talking about how AI is being used to discover and create all these new materials that have these amazing properties. Like imagine solar panels that are even more efficient at collecting energy batteries that last longer and can store more power, and even materials that can just pull carbon dioxide straight out of the air.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. And even though a lot of this stuff is still in development, the potential is huge. Imagine if we could not only reduce our emissions, but actually remove carbon that's already in the atmosphere. That could really change everything.
It feels like we're on the verge of some kind of material revolution, all thanks to AI.
It is definitely exciting. But as we get caught up in all the possibilities of these futuristic applications, we also have to remember to think about the entire life cycle of these materials. It's not just about creating them, but about making sure they're produced in the way that's sustainable and doesn't create new problems down the line.
That's such an important point. We need to make sure these solutions are actually sustainable and not just quick fixes that end up causing more harm in the long run. And AI can help with that too, right?
Absolutely. AI can help us model different scenarios and understand what the potential consequences of our choices might be. It can help us figure out what the environmental impact of a new material might be from the moment it's created to the moment it's disposed of.
So it's not just about finding that next big technological breakthrough. It's about using AI to make sure those breakthroughs are actually good for us in the long run. It's finding that balance between being innovative and being responsible.
You nailed it. And that's where things get really interesting. How do we make sure that as AI keeps getting more powerful and is used in more places, that it's aligned with our values and goals for a sustainable future?
That's a really important question, and it leads us to another area where AI is playing a critical role.
You know, it seems like in almost every area we've talked about, whether it's transportation or agriculture, the conversation always comes back to energy.
Yeah, that's true. It's like energy is the common thread that connects all of these challenges and solutions.
And that makes sense, right? At the core of this whole climate change issue is the way we produce and consume energy.
Okay, so let's focus on that for a bit. How can AI help us create a more sustainable and efficient energy system?
Well, one area where AI is already making a big difference is in developing those smarter energy grids.
Smarter energy grids.
Yes, instead of those old school grids that can barely keep up with demand. Imagine a system that's dynamic and intelligent thanks to AI.
Okay, I'm listening. What does a smart energy grid actually look like?
Well, think about it. AI algorithms can analyze huge amounts of data from sensors all across the grid. They can track how much energy is being used, predict what the demand is going to be, and even anticipate potential problems all in real time.
So the grid can adjust itself automatically to keep things balanced.
Exactly. And here's the really cool part. Smart grids can seamlessly integrate renewable energy sources like solar and wind power, which can be kind of tricky because they're not always consistent.
Right. The sun is always shining and the wind isn't always blowing when we need it. So how does AI solve that problem?
Well, AI can actually predict when those fluctuations in renewable energy are going to happen based on weather patterns and historical data. So the grid can anticipate those changes in supply and adjust accordingly, maybe by tapping into energy storage systems or encouraging people to use energy at different times when renewables are more plentiful.
So it's like AI is helping us make renewable energy more reliable.
Exactly. And on the topic of using energy more efficiently, AI is also playing a big role in those smart buildings that everyone's talking about.
Oh yeah, those buildings that can like learn your habits and adjust the lighting and temperature for you automatically.
Exactly. They can optimize energy use without you even having to think about it.
That's awesome. And imagine the energy savings if whole cities started using these technologies.
It's huge. We could significantly reduce emissions from buildings and create a much more resilient and sustainable energy infrastructure overall.
But it's not just about these big systems, right? What about individuals? Can AI help people make smarter energy choices in their own lives?
Definitely. There are already AI-powered apps out there that can track your carbon footprint, analyze your energy consumption, and even give you personalized tips on how to reduce your impact. Some apps even make it into a game, so it's fun to try to save energy.
I love that because it's easy to feel helpless when you think about the scale of climate change. But these tools remind you that you can actually make a difference.
And when you make it easy and even fun to be more sustainable, it can really help change people's behavior and create a culture where everyone is more aware of their energy use.
Okay, so we've talked about smarter grids, intelligent buildings, and even personalized energy apps. But what about all the carbon that's already up there in the atmosphere? Can AI help us clean up the mess we've already made?
That's the million-dollar question. And the answer is yes, AI is becoming more and more important in developing carbon capture and storage technologies.
Okay, now we're getting into the really futuristic stuff. So are we talking about those giant machines that suck carbon dioxide out of the air? Is that how it works?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that. Carbon capture and storage involves capturing carbon dioxide from different sources like power plants or even directly from the air. And then you have to transport it to a storage site, usually deep underground.
Okay, so where does AI come in?
AI is being used in every step of the process. For example, AI can help design better materials for capturing the carbon dioxide. It can optimize the transport and storage processes and even monitor those storage sites to make sure there aren't any leaks.
So it's like AI is a climate change detective, sniffing out emissions, finding ways to capture them, and making sure they're locked away safely.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just a futuristic idea either. There are already projects happening around the world where AI is being used to improve carbon capture and storage.
That's good to hear. It means these solutions are actually becoming a reality. But like with any technology, there must be potential risks to consider too. Like,
Oh, for sure. We need to be very careful about any unintended consequences of using AI on such a large scale. Like the energy needed to run some of these AI systems could end up offsetting the environmental benefits. And we also need to make sure that these technologies are used fairly and equitably so everyone benefits, not just a few.
so it's about using AI responsibly and ethically, making sure it's actually serving humanity and the planet.
Exactly. And that brings up another big question. As AI gets more powerful and is used in more and more ways, how can we make sure that it aligns with our values and goals for a sustainable future?
That's a great question. And it leads us to another area where AI is playing a really important role. We've been talking about all these amazing ways that AI can help us reduce emissions, optimize energy use, and even capture carbon from the atmosphere. But I have to wonder, with all this focus on the technology, are we kind of forgetting about the human side of things?
That's a great point, and it's definitely something we need to pay attention to. Even the most advanced AI systems are still just tools, and they're created and used by humans. So the real question is, how can we use AI to empower people to make better choices for the environment?
Right, because even if we have all these self-driving electric cars and super efficient buildings, it's not going to matter much if people aren't actually on board with making those changes.
Exactly. And that's where the field of behavioral science comes in. Researchers are looking at how we can use AI to nudge people towards more sustainable behaviors, whether it's encouraging them to save energy at home or maybe promoting plant-based diets.
It's like using AI to hack our brains for good, right? I've read about apps that use gamification to turn saving energy into a competition or give you personalized recommendations that show you how your actions can actually make a difference.
Those are some really good examples. And what's cool is that these approaches are based on a really deep understanding of psychology and how people change their behavior. So by combining AI with those insights, we can design interventions that are more effective and more engaging.
So it's not just about telling people what to do, but understanding why they do what they do, and then using AI to make those sustainable choices easier and more appealing.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that idea of ethical considerations in AI development. We have to make sure that these technologies are used to empower people, not to manipulate them. Transparency, fairness, and accountability are super important.
It's kind of like walking a tightrope, right? We want to use the power of AI to create positive change, but we also have to be really careful about the potential risks and unintended consequences.
It's definitely a balancing act, but I think if we approach AI development with a focus on human well-being and sustainability, we can figure out how to navigate those challenges and create a future where technology and humanity work together to solve the climate crisis.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from smarter cities and sustainable farms to climate predictions and carbon capture. It's clear that AI is already having a big impact on how we're dealing with climate change. But I think the biggest takeaway here is that AI isn't a magic solution. It's a powerful tool that can help us amplify our efforts, speed up progress, and make better decisions.
I completely agree. In the end, it's up to us as individuals and as a society to decide how we want to use these tools and make sure we're using them wisely and ethically.
So for everyone listening, this deep dive isn't just about learning some cool new things about technology. It's a call to action. Stay informed, get involved, and speak up for responsible AI development that benefits both people and the planet.
And don't underestimate the power of your own choices. Whether it's reducing your carbon footprint, supporting businesses that care about sustainability, or talking about these ethical questions, every action makes a difference.
We've only just scratched the surface of this topic. The world of AI and climate change is huge, and there's so much more to explore. So keep learning, stay curious, and remember, the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create.
As you continue to learn and think about these things, here's something to consider. Will AI be the key to creating a truly sustainable future? Or will it just change the world in new ways with new challenges and opportunities? The answer depends on the choices we make today.
That's a great point to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning and stay curious.